everyone and welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about my few non-orchid plants, mainly my carnivores, my carnivorous plants, but also about some sphagnum moss I've been growing and some other little projects. So I thought that I'd just give you a quick kind of overview of some of the other plants that I do keep, because often these sort of plants work really well as companion plants to orchids. They need the same kind of conditions. It's not going to cost you anything really to keep them, and they'll deal with the pests that orchids inevitably attract, like fungus gnats for example, and even I've heard that they can deal with thrips, but I'm not sure that that's accurate. But in theory, any flying insect that likes to land on plants, these guys can take care of. That's not to say they're not prone to their own pests, but so far I've not had to deal with any of that. So I'll just give you a little bit of an overview of the type of carnivores that I keep first of all. So if we kind of look at the little section in front of us first, these are my Pinguiculas, and I only really keep Mexican Pinguiculas, and the most common hybrids in cultivation are the Pinguicula Weser, which is this little cabbage here, and also this one here. This is a division because they produce little pups, little baby Pinguiculas, which you can just take off and then will produce their own pups, or I like to call them pups. I'm not sure if that's a technical term, but I think it's a cute term. So this one was just kind of a couple of plants when I got it, and you can see they rapidly proliferate. So you can also propagate them by leaf pulling. So in theory, you can just take a leaf, put it in some sphagnum, and it will root. I've not tried that so far. I think it'd be interesting to try, but they propagate well enough on their own, just producing these little side plants that you can just pull off and plant up by themselves, as I did with this one. And so that is my Pinguicula Wesers. They literally require almost no care. The Mexican Pinguiculas don't require a dormancy as such, although in cold months they may turn into more of a succulent type plant. They grow these little succulent leaves and they're just really cute. They look like little succulents. They're adorable. So they don't, when they're in this sort of succulent stage, they don't produce the stickiness on the leaves. They don't catch fungus gnats. But other than that, they don't really require much attention. They just need low salt content water. So I feed them with my zero water. I do know, however, people that just feed them with normal filtered water, and that works just fine. So yeah, they produce really pretty flowers. So you can see this one's produced quite a lot of flowers all of a sudden. I think it suddenly turned into Pinguicula flowering season, but they're just starting to fade now. But it's very pretty. And this one is the Pinguicula Tina, which is another Mexican hybrid commonly in cultivation that you can often pick up at garden centres, and it's a much bigger plant than the Weser. And it produces really fluffy cabbage-like leaves, and I actually find that this one is a little bit better at catching fungus gnats. Just I think the leaf availability is bigger. Occasionally you'll need to do some maintenance with these, so you can see the bottom leaves kind of die off, so in theory you can kind of take them off. In practice, dealing with sticky carnivorous plants is never particularly easy, so I tend to just leave them be until it gets to a stage where it's causing problems. This is another little hybrid that I've got, which is a little bit more tricky to care for. I kind of got it because I went to the actual carnivorous plant nursery and the guy kind of sold it to me. They had really pretty flowers and he was like, well, why not? So this one is Pinguicula Gigantea Alba crossed with Pinguicula Moctezumae. And I think this one does require slightly different care because I don't do so well with it. It produced a little baby plant. See, hanging off the side there, and it kind of survives. It grows bigger leaves. The bottom leaves are always dying off. I feel like I could be doing better with it, but I'm not a carnivorous plant specialist, as you can see. These are kind of just little companion plants that I bought for the orchids to deal with the fungus gnats that I've then got really interested in. So I might look into this one a little bit more and see if it needs something different. It was absolutely dying when I first got it. I got it home and it just seemed to die on me. And I think it was because it was planted a bit high and there was lots of live moss growing on the top. So I repotted it and got more of its roots down into the media. But you can see it's producing roots again. They're kind of going over the pot. So that could be why. These are all kept constantly moist. So I just keep them in a little saucer of water. Self-watering pots work really well for all carnivorous plants because they like to be constantly and evenly moist, not necessarily soaking wet, although for some of them, like the sundews, they literally grow in bogs, so they do like soaking wet, and the Flytraps as well, which I have quite a few of, but they're all outside in my little greenhouse, so I could actually take you down there and show you my bog pots actually in a bit. But first we'll talk about the guys we've got here, which are all the temperate ones that like warmer conditions. So we've kind of talked about my Pinguiculas. Next we'll move on to a plant that I only have one of, so it won't take up very much time. This is the adorable little Cephalotus follicularis, and I just absolutely fell in love with this because the new little pitchers that form look just like little old men hiding their faces, or little kids. I just think they're so cute when they're forming. And so this is the Australian pitcher plant, which is the only member of its genus. And it's reputably a little bit harder to grow. I haven't found it so far. I've had it about a year and it's just kind of growing out of the pot. I kept it outside during summer, which where we've got a bit of burning on this pitcher. Since it's come in, it's produced nice little pitchers that are just so cute and adorable. And I was thinking that they actually weren't very effective at catching fungus gnats. But when I picked this up to show you guys, I actually found... See if I can zoom you in on this. I've just peeled the picture lid back a little bit. See a fungus gnat in there? So it is catching them. Just pop that back down again. There you go. Now they attract flies by producing these lids, which are patterned, and they have little transparent or opaque mottlings, markings, and apparently that replicates the sky, and flies get confused and go towards it and then fall in. But it's a really cute little miniature pitcher plant, and I literally just keep it in a little saucer of water all the time. It's got a little wick in there, so it's kind of a self-watering system, and I think that that keeps it nice and evenly moist because they can be a little bit prone to rotting, I believe. So yeah, that's my little Cephalotus follicularis. Cute little guy, isn't he? Cute little fuzzy guy. And next we'll talk about my Nepenthes. I only have 4 of these guys. I've got another rescue one sat in my moss tray, but I just picked that up from the garden centre for pretty much nothing, so I'm not sure if it'll survive or not. So this is quite a common one in cultivation. The X in front of the name just means that it's a naturally occurring hybrid. Ventrata, I couldn't tell you what that is a hybrid between, but if you're interested, it's X Ventrata. And this one has done really well despite having been left outside way longer than it should have. So I've just brought it in. It and my other big Nepenthes stayed outside far longer than the rest just because I was still trying to sort indoor space back for them. So it's been like 3 degrees Celsius outside, and it's still okay. I was expecting some damage, but it's produced this absolutely massive pitcher, and they love it outside because in summer they just seem to... Oh, I just got sticky on me from one of the pitchers that's leaking. Gross. Yeah, in summer there are lots of wasps around, and all of these pitchers are producing like their version of happy sap. So I've just got covered in their, like, basically their saliva, which is a little bit gross. But yeah, they really, really are good at catching wasps, moths, blue bottles, flies, bigger flies though. They don't tend to... or at least I don't see that they're as successful at catching fungus gnats. So these guys are for the bigger flies. I keep them more just because of how interesting they are. They're also called monkey cups, and they just produce these pitchers which are full of saliva. You can kind of see the level of the saliva as I tip it a little. See if we can get you in a pitcher, because that's got quite a big opening in that pitcher. You see it's kind of full of saliva. That one's not caught anything, but it's only recently opened. I have a feeling if we were to look at one of the other pictures, you would see quite a lot of stuff in there. I found one that it had over summer. And can you see it's got quite a lot of stuff in its picture there, which is dissolved wasp probably. So that is the Ventrata. And next we've got a super cute little one, which is a naturally occurring hybrid, again, called the Hookeriana, which is a cross between ampullaria and raffelsiana. Now, one thing I didn't say is if you're buying Nepenthes for the first time, go for the highland varieties. This one's a lowland, and it doesn't actually do too bad for me, but the places that Nepenthes come from. So like with orchids, our high elevation orchids will be the really cool growers that we might struggle to keep in a home. With Nepenthes, it's kind of the reverse. The high elevation ones are like maybe 20 degrees Celsius average, 20 to 27, something like that they like. And humidity, they can deal with a home environment. However, the lowland ones are from the really steamy tropical jungles where it's like really, really hot and humid. So the lowland ones of Nepenthes are actually the more difficult ones to grow in the home. Again, this one has done really well for me. I really wanted an ampullaria hybrid because they produce these little cute round pitchers, but I wasn't confident that, because the ampullaria is like really lowland, I wasn't confident in keeping it. So I went for this hybrid, which seems to be a little bit easier to care for in the home. And this is the latest leaf that it's produced. So the leaf jump means that it's done well because it's produced a bigger structure. So like pseudobulbs with orchids, and the bigger, as they get progressively bigger, it's kind of a more healthier plant, and the pitchers get bigger as well. So this is a pitcher while it's forming. And eventually that will mature into this sort of thing. And then when they first start on the leaves, they kind of look like little fuzzy nubs. The start of a pitcher. They're super cute. And eventually, Nepenthes are vining, so eventually they grow into big vines and you have to kind of have supports for them to vine up. But at this stage, they are just cute little carnivores that are quite easy to keep. But I was thinking of eventually when they do vine, I'll have them kind of vining up my Vanda stands. And then this one is a really, really common hybrid, the Bloody Mary. You can find this often in garden centres. This one I did get at a garden centre. It's actually 2 plants which are now producing even more little baby plants from around the base. Just find another little baby starting somewhere. Yeah, just under here we've got another little baby plant starting. I can't actually show you it, but you can see a picture from it. There you go. Another little baby starting there. Yeah, it's just become very intertwined. So this one does need a repot because it's getting a little bit big for its pot here. And I keep these all in self-watering pots in either sphagnum moss or a mixture of peat moss and perlite. Nepenthes like a more airy mix than the kind of sundews and pinguiculas, in my opinion. So they do really well in sphagnum perlite mixes in self-watering systems. And the great thing about carnivorous plants is they don't mind an acidic pH. So whereas with orchids you have to be quite careful of a media getting too acidic, it doesn't matter with something that grows in a peat bog, for example, like a sundew. They are absolutely fine with acidic pH, so it kind of limits the urgency of changing the media. And they don't like salt build up around their roots because they're obviously gaining all of their nutrients from other structures. So they don't like any nutrient absorption through the roots, really. So again, just feeding with low TDS water as you would all of the carnivorous plants. Talk a little bit about my sundews. We've got a few of these floating around. They're all kind of the same, just divisions. So I'll just talk to you about this one, but we have another one at the back there. But this is my kind of monster sundew that will drink an entire reservoir of water within a couple of days. It's really difficult to actually keep up with watering this guy, but as you can see, he's absolutely huge. He's very good at catching fungus gnats for me, so he is earning his keep. Produced many flowers this season. You can see it's starting some flowers there. Now the flowers actually seem to self-pollinate because I end up with baby sundews just growing in my orchid pots quite often, which is, you know, it's fine. It's really weird. They're not tolerant of salt buildups and yet they'll happily sit in an orchid pot that gets fertilised regularly. So maybe that's not as important as it's kind of advertised, but to be on the safe side, always feed low TDS water. So this is from my 0 water jug. Yeah, they do really well. Whenever they dry up, you will get die-off. If you let them dry out, you will get dead leaves. With sundews especially, they're really intolerant of drying out. So self-watering pots are fantastic for sundews. You can get these in various forms, ranging from the kind of long filamentous form to rosette forming sundews, which are also really cute. The thing about sundews is they do require a winter rest, so they can go through apparently a few growth cycles indoors, no problem, but they do best when allowed to die back over the winter. This is what the nursery I got them from was telling me, and they have great success, and they're actually an award-winning nursery. They've won many like RHS awards. That's like Hampshire Carnivorous plants. The website is Hans Flytrap. They're really, really good nursery, so I definitely recommend checking them out. And the guy who owns it is super happy to talk you through the species that he sells. So this is actually many plants now. They kind of produce new nodes and propagate that way, and you can just take one of these plants off and it'll start all over again, and then they die back in winter, just leaving the little not protocorms, little nubs, which are where the new growths come from, and then as spring comes they will regrow. And the guy I was buying them from actually over winter, his is pretty much sat in puddles of ice, like they can completely ice over and still come back from it. So I'm gonna try for now keeping these indoors, but maybe next winter I'll let them die back. I've got a few that I'm gonna be keeping outdoors, so we can do a bit of a comparison. Last but not least, we've got this absolutely giant Nepenthes, which is starting to vine, and I got this one reduced from a garden centre and it had absolutely no pictures, so I got it dirt cheap. I chucked it outside in my orchid greenhouse over summer and it's pictured beautifully, got some massive big pictures. They do look a bit rude, don't they? But they are huge, and I'm excited to see when they open what they're actually going to look like, because then I can ID it. You can't really ID them until they start picturing. So we've got loads and loads of pictures here. It's doing super well. Big plant, and it's actually 2 plants. So those are my kind of indoor carnivores. I will just take you to my Sphagnum moss tray now to show you that before we go outside and look at the outdoor carnivores. So this is my little tray of Sphagnum moss, and I apologise if the sound quality has dropped because I've just come into the orchid grow room, so we've got fans going and things. I have stopped filming in here because of this, but just to show you the moss tray. These are some little rosette forming sundews that I grew from seed, and they're just growing in some Sphagnum moss, and some live moss has started growing on the top there. This is my actual live Sphagnum moss tray. Now I started this off from a few little divisions given to me by the owner of the Carnivorous plant nursery, but after I read about this I kind of was curious as to whether I could grow it myself from the Bezgrow Sphagnum moss. So I put some Bezgrow Sphagnum into a little Tupperware container, and it did start growing for me. This has been sat in there for like 6 months though. It took a long time to start growing, and I don't know if it would happen with every Bezgrow Sphagnum. I just noticed that a few YouTubers were saying that you could grow it yourself from certain brands of Sphagnum moss, depending on whether they still had live seeds kind of viable, I guess, or live moss in there somewhere, just in like a dehydrated state. So yeah, this one was grown from Bezgrow Sphagnum, taken a few little pinchings from it, grown it in other little containers that I was growing some Utricularia seeds in, which actually sprouted but then got buried by the Sphagnum. So yeah, this is my little tray of Sphagnum. To propagate it, you literally just take some, tear it up into little pieces and just dot it around. Keep it constantly moist. This one is grown covered. You can see it's got no like dieback on the top really. Whereas this one, where it's dried out a little bit, you've got a little bit of dieback. So I'm not really sure what to do with this because I'm really switching to inorganic media, and this moss will not like salt buildup. So I guess you could kill it and then use it in orchid pots, dry it out. But yeah, it will die if you put it into orchid pots, really, with the fertiliser situation. I have tried growing it on top of my Sphagnum orchid pots and it doesn't really work. It doesn't like the same conditions. Just got a little Masdevallia in here, which is growing quite warm in my grow room and actually is doing well. I just chucked this in. This is a free one I got given by Spice Exotic, and it's doing really well. And actually, just to show you something, you see the little sundew that's growing in there? This is where I literally chucked some sundew seeds into this Sphagnum moss, and can you see there as well? And I think they're getting buried a bit by the Sphagnum, but we do have some sundews in here as well. They just seem to self-pollinate and get everywhere in my grow room. So yeah, those are my kind of sphagnum moss tray, and this is just sitting on my shelf under one under-counter LED light. It doesn't get any special treatment really, I just keep it constantly wet. There's always some water kept in the tray there. And it grows quite well, and it's kind of growing out of the tray, as you can see. So now I'll just take you down to my little outdoor greenhouse and we can look at some of my outdoor carnivores. So this is my little outdoor greenhouse, just a small one. I kept my vandas and some other orchids out here during summer. Now we've just got the cymbidiums left outside, which did not do amazingly. I burnt them loads over summer, so yeah, these have got a bit neglected because they're very big and unwieldy and I can't really have them in my grow room. So yeah, these are my bog pots. So in there we've got, I just got attacked by a spider, so I'm not going to come in here. In there we've got some Sarracenias and some Venus flytraps, which need a cool down over winter. They kind of need to die back over winter and then to form their summer pitches again in the spring. And they're doing really well. These are just some little DIY bog pots I made. We're starting to get some dye back for winter. Some live moss in there as well. I've also got a sundew, I think, in that one. Yeah, the long stringy one is a sundew. So that is one bog pot. And we've also got another bog pot here, which has got more Sarracenias in. Getting some dye back now on some of the sundew that I had in there. But this Sarracenia did so well over summer. It's just got absolutely huge. And got another Venus flytrap in there. So those are my outdoor carnivores, and we've got my winter resting dendrobiums up here. So this is the Wayne Turnville, which is a Kingianum falcarostrum hybrid. And this is my Den speciosum, which did really well over summer, and apparently they have to get quite a lot larger to bloom, but this is quite a compact variety, so I'm not sure if it'll bloom or not, but we'll give it a winter rest and carry on next year. And that is a very quick tour of my carnivorous plants and other little projects and sphagnum moss project. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, then give it a like or subscribe to my channel for more regular orchid updates. If you've got any questions, then pop a comment down below and I will do my best to answer. And I hope you have a good day, guys. Bye!